Welcome to East by West Farms. Here we grow what we eat and eat what we grow. Today I'm going to harvest some mustard green leaves and process it for cooking. In front of me, you see a beautiful bush of yellow flowers. These are the mustard green. I'm actually growing this to get seeds. And also around this time, there are not many things are blooming. So it's good to let some of this brassica family to go into seeds. So you will have some flower for the bees. Last year, I put some seeds in the ground, and if you watch the video before, you know that didn't work very well because we had a crazy weather. Most of the plants didn't take except one mustard green. I let it grow, and then it set seed in spring. And so I took the seeds and just spread it around the garden. They actually grew through summer under the sweet potato vines. When the weather cools, they just thrived, and they are all over the garden. We just get first very light freeze, so some of the sweet potato you see, the tips are already kind of blackened, but the roots are still okay, so they are still growing. But now is a time for the cool weather vegetable to start to really grow. What I'm going to do is actually harvest some of them and then process it, and this will continue come back, and then we probably will have a whole winter supply of mustard green from just one plant. So what I'm showing here is actually this plant that was blooming, and you can see that, of course, it has the tall part that have all the flowers and the seed part. But at the bottom, near the root, it's actually still shooting the wrapper that has just started blooming. These are actually very tasty stage of the plant. You can just cut it at the bottom. The bottom may be a little bit too old, and I just cut and drop it. This part, you can try it to see whether at what point it's still tender, and that will give you a very tasty stir-fry green for you. First, they shoot out this wrapper. If you catch them early enough, you can harvest them and cook them, and then they will bloom, and then they will get seeds like this. Once you see them start to swollen, and then the skin gets thinner on the seed part, so then these are ready to harvest. So you can just cut it, hang it to dry. Then the seed part will open once it's dried, and the black seeds will drop out, so you can collect them and put it in for your next growth. What I do actually, I just take this and cut it just like this, and then I just throw wherever I want them to grow. And that's how I got this plant. So this is a new garden patch. Basically, was still have native soil, and I didn't even till it. Just covered it with straw. What I'm going to do is just cut these seeds that I just harvest, and that walk them into the hay. And let it do the thing, and maybe by spring we should have some mustard green that grown out of this patch. In front of me is a huge bundle of mustard green. I intentionally let it grow. The reason is that I want it to get very strong roots, so that when I come to harvest, it will have energy to push out a new growth and keep the plant going. The downside of that, of course, is some of the leaves. You can see that it's kind of get old. They are too old for cooking, to cooking directly. But there are lots of fiber, so it's good to get the it's great to get the fiber into your diet. What you need to do is be able to process and ferment it slightly to break down the fiber so you can cook with it. First, I'm going to harvest this, and what I'm going to do actually just going to harvest all the leaves and let it push the new leaves out for the next round of harvesting. That's just one cut. For the yellow ones, the leaves are already turned yellow. That's mostly the ones that near the bottom. I just drop it here and let them to become fertilizer. Looks good. Okay, I cleaned up that pretty well. You can see how strong the root is. It's so dense that they shoot out so much stuff. I mean, I literally butchered it. So you can see lots of young tips still growing. Those will shoot out, and now that all the energy in the root will push this out, and you can come in to harvest the young ones that are for cooking. For chop and the job, I just use a pair of scissors and cut it up a little bit. So that way it will break down a little bit better, and then that becomes the fertilizer for the plant. So this is actually used to be, is the root of the master green that was a huge bush, and I chopped it all the way down. You can see there's a huge root mass. And I believe this root mass, you can actually pickle it and use it as condiment. Now I'm going to show you how to process the master green leaves. All you need is a bowl, and probably I need a bigger one, but I will do this for the demo for now. And a jar of hot water. And this needs to be really hot. We just boiled it. Some sea salt and a cover plate for the bowl. I have the greens that are washed in the sink over here. So I'm going to just take it out and put it in the bowl. If I had the time, I would drain out the water, but it's not that critical. Okay. That's probably good to get started. And then what I do is get the hot water in there. And you can see that they start to kind of get soft. And then I will use the thong to turn it. Just make sure they're all get soft and submerged in there. This mustard green actually release gas, very strong pungent gas, almost like onion to make you cry. I'm not sure the mustard gas that they used in World War I came from this or not. The greens are all very soft. You can actually cook with this, with your dishes, because they are a little bit old. So I'm going to ferment it. I will add a little bit salt, not too much, just slight sprinkle probably. It doesn't really matter too much how much salt in there, just some salt. Put the cover on and leave it at room temperature for probably 1 and 1.5 days. Depends on how hot you set your room. They should start to turning brown, and then by tomorrow around noontime, you can see that they are all kind of like yellow, but has this very sweet smell. And then that means the fermentation is ready. So you can take that out, squeeze out the water, put in a bowl or a Ziploc bag, leave in the refrigerator for cooking, or you can take the whole thing and put it in the refrigerator. If your temperature is too high, just check it, and you see if you see kind of white stuff on the top, those are okay, those are yeast. Then you just take the thong and turn them around and submerge it. In the afternoon when I check it, I would turn it around so that the top will submerge in the brine, and that get more evenly fermented. So I will show you what it look like probably in maybe this evening. I put all the mustard greens in a big saucepan, and it's been 24 hours or so. It has this very beautiful brown color, and if you smell it, you can smell the sweet fermentation smell. You can still see some of them. I actually turned it, are still a little bit green. So that means you could leave it in here for another few hours. Now the temperature is not very high, so the brine looks very clear. But if the temperature is high, like in summer, you might see kind of the white stuff floating around. Don't be alarmed on that, that's just yeast. What you can do is to flip it. And so that make sure all the green ones that are submerged in the brine, and so that way you get a more even fermentation. In this video, I showed how to harvest and process the mustard green leaves. This fermentation technique is very simple and easy, and it can be used for other greens that with the taste that you don't like, but it has lots of fiber. Gailan or kohlrabi leaves, or turnip leaves, or radish leaves. You can all process it this way. The fermentation process take that kind of bitter taste from the green leafy vegetable, and then substitute with this sweet fermentation taste. So it's kind of like a light sauerkraut, and you can use this to cook with your favorite dishes. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumb up. If you have any questions or comments, please leave it down below. If you have not done so, please hit the subscribe button to follow our journey with the East by West farms.